Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. It's Friday, September 20th. I'm excited. If you haven't joined us before, I'm a sales coach and trainer. I work with both individuals and organizations to help them get measurable and sustainable sales increases. And I founded the Sales Pro Network to elevate the profession of sales. If you have joined us before, you know that every Friday at 10 a.m., I bring you either a live training or a guest who can add value to the profession of sales. And today is no exception, my friends. I'm going to bring our guest in now. There he is. This gentleman is a master mindset coach. He's the founder of the Mindset Gym. And he says, the less you work, the more you make. I think we're going to have to talk to him about that. Please welcome Jarod Haning. Hey, Jarod.
Hello. Happy to be here.
Jarod, good to see you, my friend. Before I get started with the 1,000,001 questions I have for you, could you please maybe give us the 2 or 3 minute version of your background?
Well, background was I was full-time classical music for 20 years. I was the principal violist of the South Carolina Philharmonic. And the tie-in between classical music and what I'm doing now is that when you are in music, you are using more different parts of your brain than any other activity. And so wouldn't it be neat if you could access some of those networks on demand? And that's what led to the development of the Mindset Gym, being able to access different thinking patterns on demand.
Interesting. So I want to go back to what you just said. When you're playing music, you're activating what? More parts of your brain? Is that it?
Oh, better than that. Not even playing, listening, engaging with. You could be sitting at a concert, clapping your hands. You're using more different networks in your brain than any other activity in life. This is well documented with MRI studies. It's a sharp contrast with things like athletic performance, where the better your body is performing, the less of your brain you're using. In music, where you're having to do math and make predictions and keep time, but at the same time, you have to create ideas. And so it's like both analytical and creative at the same time, networks all over your head happening. But in athletics or many other aspects, the brain quiets down because your body doesn't need to be spending glucose, keeping the brain going. It needs that glucose to go to the muscles.
Fascinating. So I'm supposed to go to a concert tonight. I've been questioning. I'm a little bit tired. Should I go? Should I not go? So if I really want to activate my brain, I should get off my lazy rear end and go to this concert tonight, right?
Well, I mean, the dose makes the medicine. I think sometimes a concert could be too much. As we get older and can't handle the stress of the event, waiting in line and the loud sounds, and it may or may not be the same. I would vote for staying home with some headphones and listen to your same song at the right volume and have a great night.
Yeah, there's something different though about like going to a movie theater or watching TV at home or going to a concert or listening to music. It's one of my 2 favorite bands. Well, a tribute band to one of my 2 favorite bands in the world. So
okay,
maybe I'll catch an afternoon nap and get my lazy ass out there.
Oh, wait, I've got a question about that. You mentioned tribute band. How do you feel about that? It's not the original artist, but it is the original music, and it sounds just the same. But it's not the original. It's a copy machine. It's a forgery. Like, how do you feel in the tribute band situation?
Yeah, so for me, if the tribute band is good and they do exactly what you just said, which is they play the music exactly the way it was recorded, the way you grew up with it, or the way you heard it, I love it. This happens to be a band called 1964. They're a Beatles tribute band, and that's my favorite band of all time, followed very closely by Pink Floyd. And I've seen 1964 before, as well as several other amazing tribute bands. And it's exciting every time. I was 10 years old when the Beatles were popular. I learned to play guitar because I wanted to be in the Beatles, not in a copy band. I wanted to be a member of the Beatles. And I was just a little too young to see them live in concert. I've seen McCartney and I've seen Wings, but never got to see them. So for me, it's kind of a way to connect to that great feeling that I can still remember to this moment when I was walking to school, had a transistor radio. For those of you who are too young, just look it up. And I first heard, I saw her standing there. No, I'm sorry. I want to hold your hand.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It takes me, even talking about it right now, brings me back to that moment and that feeling of, oh my God, like I just had this amazing revelation.
Do you know why the Beatles were so good? Meaning, what was different about how that band got started as opposed to all the other bands in the world?
How they got started?
How they got started.
I'm going to ask you to explain what you're thinking rather than me taking a million guesses.
Um,
I've read a lot of books about how they got started, but go ahead. What's your point?
Okay. Well, do you remember anything from how they got started in the book?
Well, sure. I mean, John was in a band. Paul went to see them. They got introduced. George was a friend of Paul's, and he brought them in. Ringo joined because their drummer was sick, and he filled in, and he was
Right.
way better than their original drummer. Who it's
Yep.
got to be a drag to be him. But yeah. And then they went to Germany, and they did their 10,000 hours there, and they became a great band.
Okay, tell me more about Germany. What happened in Germany?
They would play for like 10 hours a day, just
right. Yes.
And they didn't really have original music. They were mostly playing other people's music, and they just played and played and played some more. And there were like not drug dealers, but criminals there. And it's a fascinating story. But it was that they played and played and just played some more.
Yes. They got a gig in a strip club circuit, and that gig, it took care of everything. Their bills, they're making plenty of money. But that is the differentiator, is that for several years they played 10, 12, 14 hours a day, and you just can't compete with that amount of work.
Yep. And they slept together in the same room. I mean, they were a family.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They really grew up together. And it's amazing to me because I was half their age, but they were just kids. They were like 19 and 20 and 21 years old. They were kids, and they took over the world.
Yeah. I love that quote about Ringo Starr. I think Harrison was being interviewed, and the journalist is like, "So is Ringo Starr like the best drummer in the world?" George Harrison goes, "He's not even the best drummer in the Beatles."
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I've had that conversation with other people, and I actually co-authored 2 books, but I didn't really write them. I used a ghostwriter, and the ghostwriter had written a book about the Beatles, and we were talking one time because I'm a massive fan. I said, all great musicians. Ringo was an okay drummer. He goes, Ringo may not have been the best drummer in the world, but he was the best drummer for the Beatles. He was perfect. He wasn't a show off. There's only one drum solo he ever did, and it was a short one. He was exactly what they needed. And, I'm not a musician like you, but I play guitar. He's rock steady. He's never there. He is on time every time. He was just perfect.
That's a great turn of phrase. He might not have been the best in the world, but he was the best for that situation. Best for that. And I agree. Yeah, for the Beatles, he was.
There are drummers. If I have to pick a favorite drummer, he's not it, but he's certainly my favorite drummer for the. Well, look, I mean, I like some. Like Carl Palmer from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, just an amazing drummer, and people like that. But they were great. And so I think I'm talking myself into going tonight just so I can see it.
All right.
At any rate, I want to ask you about stuff, because I've already spent 8 minutes talking about other stuff. And I think people are turning in to learn how they can increase their sales. So I know you work a lot with business owners, in fact, mainly only with business owners. And I always say that salespeople are really running their own business. They may work for a corporation, but they're really in business for themselves. So what are the 3 reasons that business owners tend to get stuck or stay stuck?
I think one of them is painfully obvious. We just don't see it because it's so close to our face. Kind of like a fish probably doesn't see water. We don't see air. And that's the difference between knowing what to do and doing it. Everybody knows what to do, but knowing what to do doesn't make a hill of beans difference. And I think the main reason most people get stuck is because they forget that knowing what to do doesn't make a difference. It just, there's a world, a gulf, a whole universe that fits in between knowing what to do and are you actually doing it? Most people would agree that if they simply made 5 calls a day, day in, day out, real calls, not emails, not text, pick up the phone, real calls. If they made 5 calls a day in 10 years, they would have $1 million business. Most people are like, absolutely. Great. When's the last time you made 5 calls? How many days in a row have you made 5 calls? Like, they don't. So that's the first one. The second one is you can't read the label from the inside of the bottle. We have this idea that we can think our way through. We can think our way out. We're smart enough, by golly, we can figure it out. And so we go to work. Jeez Louise, man. Sorry. I've got this cat that seems to be on my. All right. So we have this idea that we're going to figure it out because we're smart people. And so we go to work thinking about it. And well, here's the deal. You can't read the label from the inside of the bottle because the same thinking that you're trying to use to get out of the mess is this thinking that got you in the mess to start with. The brain can only think of what already makes sense. So you doing more thinking is just more of the same kinds of ideas. And then the third reason, we'll put that one together, is how we feel. Remember, it's not knowing what to do that makes the difference. It's how it feels inside your body. This is the riding a bicycle analogy. Nobody knows how to ride a bicycle. You don't understand how to ride a bicycle. A bicycle is a feeling that your brain is recreating. And until that feeling changes in your body, your brain will keep firing off the same networks, which is why one person in sales gets on and makes it rain. Not because the product's better, but because people want their energy. Another person says the exact same words, nobody buys. Not because the words aren't right, but because people are buying who you are. So those three: how you feel, using the same networks, knowing what to do.
And what about somebody who says, "Well, I'll just work harder"?
Working harder and faster is like driving in the wrong direction. But hey, I'm going really fast. I think working harder, the best illustration. I remember when I was a kid, I would say, because teachers would say, work hard, hard work. You just hear that everywhere you go. Isn't hard work the key to success? And I would say coal miners work hard their whole life. I dare say coal miners work harder than dentists and bankers, but all they get in the end is emphysema. I don't think it's hard work. I think it's working on the right things. You could look at other people that are in your space, people that you know, and in every space, there's somebody doing 10 times more. There's a guy in insurance sales down the road who has the same size city that you do, who's selling the same product that you are, who has the same type of networks that you do, who plays golf just as much as you do, and he's doing 10 times more. Is he more talented? No. But just what is he not doing that you keep putting on your calendar? Why are you still doing that stuff? He's not doing those things. That's why he's different. So the hard work thing is the to-do list. If I check more things off my to-do list, I'll make more money. No, you won't.
Fan of that, right?
No, you won't. Everything on your to-do list could be delegated for $15 an hour. If you check more things off your to-do list, you just got paid $15 an hour longer. That's my take on hard work.
Yeah. So I could not agree more with that. Well, with everything you say, because I think you're brilliant. But you should absolutely, positively outsource anything you possibly can to somebody who can do it for much cheaper. I have a VA. She's phenomenal. It's cost me $10 an hour. Now, I bill out at substantially more than that. So that means every time I'm doing work that she could do, I'm losing a substantial amount of money. Mm-hmm. And I'm not quite sure, but I don't think you're actually saying don't work harder, work smarter, right? Or is that what you're saying?
I would a slight distinction, and that distinction is there's no such thing as working smarter. There is such thing as working harder, but harder is more effort going the wrong direction. The reason there's no such thing as working smarter is because your brain can only think of what already makes sense. So you trying to be smarter is just more cleverly disguised same ideas.
So we need to think differently.
I would propose that.
Okay.
The trick, of course, is how do you get your brain to think of things that don't currently make sense? And well, that's the work I do. That's the Mindset Gym.
So one of the things you said that which really intrigued me, and I mentioned this at the beginning, was the less you work, the more you make.
Yes.
That sounds excellent. So how do we work less and make more?
Well, first we have to break the illusion that productivity is about getting things done. It's not. All you have to do is just glance back at your life over the past 30 days and notice that you've been checking things off your to-do list, but still every day they keep showing back on the list. And that's because productivity isn't about checking them off. Productivity is about causing things to be done, which means if you are checking something off your list, you're actually ensuring that you will be the one doing it tomorrow.
Excuse me.
So rather than doing the task, you document and delegate the task. If you do the task, then we know for sure you don't have a system to do it, and tomorrow you'll be doing it again. You haven't moved the ball forward. And this is what is so painful, to not do the task. Instead, document, delegate, demonstrate. Because for the people that think like an action taker, their brain is high action. In that moment that they're demonstrating, documenting, delegating, it feels like they didn't get anything done. And it's true. You didn't. However, you'll never again have to do it. But if you do the task, you will always be the one having to do it.
Okay. There's something else I saw on your website, which I had to ask you about. It says you're only one thought away from your next breakthrough. Can one thought really be that impactful?
Oh, I would say so. I mean, we're always one thought away. The pickle is we usually can't think of that thought on our own, or we would have. It's the thought to try this route instead of driving the normal route. It's the thought to try this flavor food instead of getting the normal food. The thought to talk to this person instead of this person. How many times have you thought, you know who I haven't talked to in a while? You call them up, and lo and behold, it changes the trajectory of the rest of your year. But you had the thought first. The pickle, of course, is how do we get our brains to produce different thoughts than it normally does?
And how do we do that?
How do we do that? We do that like riding a bicycle. So in the work that I do, mindset, the definition I hold to is that mindset is not an energy. It's not a personality. It's not an attitude. Mindset is a strategic pattern of thinking. Because it is a pattern, it is something anyone... Woo! Where did that come from? It is something that anyone can learn because it's a pattern.
And now, you're not just talking about positive attitude, right?
Right. I would say specifically positive attitude is not a pattern because it is not something that anyone can learn. It's something that some people seem to have, some people seem to be able to adopt, and some people it's forever out of their grasp. It's not a pattern. If it is a pattern, then anyone would be able to learn it. So how do we access those patterns of thinking in our head? The same way we learn how to ride a bicycle. Now, when you're 5 years old and you're learning to ride a bicycle, your crazy Aunt Jenny comes by with some well-meaning advice. She says, what you need to do is go faster because it's easier to balance. And you think to yourself, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. If I can't balance going slow, how's that going to help? That's just going to make it worse. Well, this is the same situation that we are in, going to business seminars, hiring business coaches, reading books. It's well-meaning advice. Now, the advice might be 1,000% accurate. The advice might be the exact best thing to transform. It might be just as accurate as crazy Aunt Jenny, who says you need to go faster because it's easier to balance when you're going a little bit faster. It could be completely accurate. Doesn't make a difference. Just like 5 years old, your brain goes, that's a terrible idea. And when you're sitting in that business seminar or your business coach says, hey, you need to do this, you think to yourself, that's not going to work in my situation. Well, of course you think it's not going to work in your situation. If you did, you'd already be doing it. Well, the breakthrough on the bicycle is the same way we get the breakthrough in all the other areas of our life. On the bicycle, one day you felt something different in your body. You felt an energy, balance. As soon as you felt balance, your brain went, oh my gosh, now I get it. I get it. Before your body felt that energy, no amount of explanation from Crazy Aunt Jenny made a difference. After your body felt that energy, no amount of explanation was needed. And better than that, you had it the rest of your life. You didn't have to willpower, discipline. You didn't have to keep doing it. You didn't have to maintain it. As soon as your brain made that connection, you had that connection the rest of your life. So business coaching, business seminars, business books, if it doesn't put the feeling in your body, it's of no value, because knowing what to do, knowing what to say doesn't move the needle. It's the feeling. And the work we do at the Mindset Gym, it's a set of exercises called mindset push-ups. Think of them as little bicycles that create that feeling in your body.
I'm going to ask you about those in a minute. Absolutely. And you're flashing me, or I'm flashing back to when I learned to ride a bicycle. You said feeling, and I'm actually feeling it. I remember my father holding the bicycle seat behind me and running alongside of me and saying, pedal fast. And I was wobbling. And I'm like, don't let go. And he's back a block away going, you're doing fine. I'm like, oh, and then it is a feeling. It's like, oh, I got it. This is how you ride a bike. And he could have explained it to me all day long, and I never would have got it. Just like you, I mean, the Aunt Ginny example is perfect. It's like, yeah, just go faster. I'm not going to go faster. I'll die.
I was so frustrated learning how to ride a bicycle. I mean, I did the move the training wheels up a little bit, so you had a little wobble. I tried taking one of them off, so you only wobbled one side. Golly, seemed like it eluded me for months. So frustrating. Glad I got it.
For me, it was frustrating trying to teach my 3 children to do it, because I was no, get rid of those training wheels. We don't need those. Let's just go. I promise I got you, and I'm not going to let go till I know you're ready. And there's that moment when you see that they're doing it great. It's like, see ya. And suddenly you're right. You've got it forever because you had that feeling. Brilliant.
My son, he wanted to take off, and he refused to learn how to stop. To stop. Yeah. Like, it's the pedals where you back pedal and you stop instantly.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go forward just a little bit and stop right away. And he wouldn't do it, because in his mind, what made sense to him is, if you want to learn how to ride, you need to ride. And I was like, if you want to ride again, you need to stay alive. So let's learn how to stop first. He wouldn't do it. And so finally, he, wrestles away from me and just takes off across the yard. He's probably, I don't know, 3-4 years old, and crashes over the bars. It was a disaster. He ends up getting poked in the stomach with the handlebar, and he would not ride a bike for 4 years after that. He would not get on one. Well, he's got it now, but obviously, sorry.
No, I love it. Much like with skiing, though, it's not just about the going. You also need to know how to stop.
You know how to stop. Yeah,
absolutely. So, who is Dr. Robert Hartman, and what are personal value structures? Because I know that's some of the basis of your work.
Yes, the Hartman value profile is what the MindScan is based on. The MindScan gives us the map of the thinking patterns that somebody is currently using. And with that map, we're able to get out of the weeds. It's similar to being in a corn maze. When you're in the corn maze, it's guesswork. Do I go left? Do I go right? Do I go forward? And when you're in the weeds in your business, it's guesswork. Should I make more calls? Should I make different calls? Should I hire a business coach? You're just guessing. You don't know. However, in a corn maze, if we gave you a ladder and you stood on that ladder, even though your head is only 2 or 3 feet higher than it was, suddenly you have instant clarity. You know exactly. And that's the difference between 3 feet. Well, what if we could take a picture of those thinking patterns how much clarity would you then have about what to do next about your business? And the Hartman value profile gives us the ability to map out those thinking patterns. Those patterns are not mapped out with preferences, if you will. They aren't mapped out with things related to our beliefs or our personality traits, or they're mapped out with not even logic. They're mapped out with values. And the reason we use values to make those map connections is because values are very stable in our life. Your values change very, very slowly. Similar to your religious beliefs or your political beliefs. Those things will change over the course of your life, but they change very, very slowly, kind of like trying to turn a cruise ship around. So that's why we use values to do that mapping.
And so what's a value structure? Is that just a particular value that you hold?
We have many values in our life. The interesting part is when you put two values against each other, for us, we still have one value that's slightly more important. So in the mind scan, as we're mapping things out, you're moving your values around until your values line up with how you see the world. And that's difficult when there's like 18 different values. So for example, two of the values might be, one of them, let's say it's a baby, and the other one, let's say it's a technical improvement. And you have to put one of those above the other. Which one of those is more morally good? Well, good luck, because they're both morally good, but you got to pick one of them. And so some people say, well, the technical improvement, we don't know what the baby is going to do. Yes, the baby is incredible potential, but we don't know what it's actually going to do. A technical improvement, we know that something has actually happened. So they vote for that. Other people say the baby, because human life has infinite worth that can't be measured. So the baby, by definition, has to be higher, even though we don't know what the baby is going to end up doing. That's just a small conflict between two. Imagine if we had 18, how much more complicated it would get after that. And by mapping those out, it reveals a lot about the structures, the thinking patterns, if you will, that your mind sees the world with. And once we have that mapped out, we can see exactly where the blind spots are that have been tripping that person up. Now, a blind spot you can't see because it's your blind spot. However, if we map it out, now you know exactly where it is. And this is why you keep trying to work harder and faster, or you keep trying to work smarter, and you keep getting the same results year after year after year. It's because you can't see your own blind spot.
Aren't we constantly making decisions based on what we believe our values to be?
Yes, we are.
For example, I say, and I believe this is true, that integrity is one of my strongest values. I always say, after my 3 kids and my dog, my integrity is the most important thing in the world to me. So I'm regularly making decisions on what I'm going to do and how I'm going to act and how I'm going to interact based on my personal judgment of what integrity is. Yes?
Mm-hmm. Yes. 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 That's an example of a very good value.
Gotcha. And how do you know if something is a mindset issue and not a discipline issue? I mean, sometimes it's just, okay, I just got to do it. So how do you know the difference? And it could be either of those things that are keeping people from being successful, right?
Well, maybe I'm biased, but I would lean towards strategic way of thinking. I just got to do it. Yes, you could be stoic about it. The world only values action. It doesn't make a hill of beans difference to the universe what you believe. Either you do it or you don't. Sure, we can be stoic, and I think that's absolutely right. But then we got to ask the question, why do you have to make yourself do it? Why is it such a colossal effort? Why do you need willpower and discipline? What's the resistance to doing it? I mean, do you need to make yourself go home and watch Game of Thrones? Do you need to make yourself stay up late and eat pizza and ice cream? I mean, what? So that's where mindset comes in. And in the Mindset Gym, when we untangle those knots and create new thinking patterns and remove the bad ones, the head trash, if you will, there's no resistance. There's nothing holding you back. There's no reason not to. And now making those calls or delegating, documenting, demonstrating those processes so you can get stuff off your table. Now that shows up to your brain the same way that staying up late eating pizza and ice cream does. The same way that going home to watch your favorite TV show does. It shows up to your brain the same way. If that's the case,
having that ladder, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just, when that's the case, we no longer need willpower or discipline or accountability, or because your brain, that's just who you are. You can't not do it at that point. So at the gym, we aren't adding things for you to do. We aren't adding things for you to think about. We're removing all the obstacles and resistance that's keeping you from doing it to start with.
All right. I want to come back and talk about this more, but we're going to take a 60-second break for a word from our sponsor, which is me. Hi, I'm Jeff Goldberg, the founder of the Sales Pro Network. For nearly 5 decades, I've been selling, managing, coaching, and training salespeople internationally. And I'm often asked for one-on-one or private coaching, but it does involve a substantial investment. For that reason, I've recently developed the Sales Pro Insider Network community. It works like this. We get together twice a month on Tuesday nights from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. At the first session of the month, it's you and me, with me taking your questions and giving you the advice and help you need to both prospect and sell more effectively. At the second session of the month, we'll have a guest coach speaking on a fascinating topic that helps sellers like you and me. And of course, we'll do group coaching then too. The best part is the investment is just $27 for the first month, and there's no long-term contract at all. In fact, you can cancel it anytime. Go to crushsalesgoals.com. That's crushsalesgoals.com. I hope to see you there. You are actually one of my very first guest coaches at the Sales Pro Insider Network, and I'm very excited. Next Tuesday, we have another great guest coach, Melissa Esmeralda, who is a email marketing expert. And if anybody who's listening would like to join in for free, forget the $27, just DM me, email me, reach out to me through LinkedIn. I'll send you a link to join us for free. Very excited about that. I want to come back to what we were talking about, because we're talking to Jarod Haning. He's a master mindset coach and the founder of the Mindset Gym. We were talking about getting things done, and it becomes easy when you know the way your brain is wired up and what your values are. So I've been talking for probably 2, maybe 3 years about, I really need to lose some weight. I know how to lose weight. I've done it before. But you were talking about it. You don't need accountability, and you don't need any of that stuff. So here, I'm just telling you what happened for me. I was in my mind, I said, you know what? Day after Labor Day, I'm just going to do it. That's it. And on Labor Day, I'm thinking to myself, yep, tomorrow morning, waking up, I know what to do. Drink more water, eat less food, eat the right food, exercise. I'm doing it. And as the day went on, I could hear myself talking to myself. I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm really going to do it. I want to. I'm going to do it. I don't know. And amazingly, that day, a dear friend of mine from high school texted me, goes, look, I got to lose some weight. I'm starting tomorrow. Will you hold me accountable? I'm like, sure, man. I said, interesting coincidence. And I don't believe in coincidences. I've been thinking about it too. I'm just not sure that I'm committed, but I will support you. But the next morning I woke up and I actually did what I needed to do. And in the last, whatever it is, 2 weeks or something like that, I'm down 7 pounds. And for me, knowing that I'm checking in with him each day, it does help me to stay on track, because keeping my word is important to me. So am I off base here, Jarod?
I'm glad that worked for you. It sounds like it's been a successful venture. I can't say, it didn't work. I've noticed in speaking to people over the years that that works for many people for 6 months, for 9 months. And then in a way, they kind of get tired of the accountability, because on a very small level, it feels like they're still making themselves do the thing that they don't really want to do. Their 100%. Strategy was, let me make myself harder. Let me just beat myself. At the Mindset Gym, we remove the resistance. There's nothing to make yourself do because there's no resistance to it. It's gone. Had a lady, she was making about 500,000 a year. She evaluates businesses to be bought and sold, and very, very successful. But for the past 10 years, life, kids, had taken hold, and she had lost the relationship with her own body that she used to enjoy. She was no longer active. She was no longer out. And that's why she came to the Mindset Gym. I've already done the diet stuff. I've tried all the diets. I've done the coach stuff. I've tried all the coaches. I've done the workout programs. I've been to every workout program in my town. I've done CrossFit and Orange Theory and blah, I've done accountability partners. I've done workout partners. None of it moved the needle. I still have the same body. That's not me. This is not a reflection of me. So we go to work with the mindset push-ups, changing the thinking patterns of her head and removing all the knots and removing all the blind spots. And we did one exercise in particular. It's called the broken bridge. One of the things the broken bridge does is it gives your body this visceral felt experience, that you are not lacking character. You're not lacking willpower. You're not lacking discipline. You're not a bad person. That is not the reason you have been stuck in this. That's not the real reason that you aren't making the sales calls. That's not the real reason that you don't exercise with some amount of discipline or consistency. That's not the reason. And when you see that, you let yourself off the hook, you stop beating yourself up, and you're free from that, because your brain is really just doing the best it can with what it has to work with. And it just so happens what it's working with is a dead end. There is no way out. You're stuck. And for many people, that's incredibly freeing. And then the next step after that is another visceral experience inside your body, which is where we begin to act like a scientist. What happens when I do this? And just simply like a scientist, writing down what happens. So we did the next step, and she wrote down exactly what happened. She documented it clearly. And every day since then, she has exercised. This was 2 years ago. And I don't mean exercise because like it was a habit, or exercise because she had momentum or she had accountability or no. I'm talking days where her kids are sick at school and she's got to go pick them up, and then the car breaks down and she's got to take it to the shop, and then she has to get over for this meeting for business. And next thing you know, it's 5:00 in the evening, and she's now cooking dinner for the kids, and she realizes she hasn't worked out all day, and she still finds 30 minutes to work out because it's who she is. She can't turn it off. Like, it actually changes how her brain sees herself. But there's a lot of mindset push-ups that create that kind of sense of awareness for people.
Yeah, the sound of getting rid of the resistance sounds delicious, because my daughter was here with me last night. You mentioned Game of Thrones. We were watching the latest episode of the new Lord of the Rings thing, the Ring of Power, because we're both fans of it. And she loves Raisinets. And so I went to the grocery store and bought Raisinets for her. So she's sitting right next to me on the couch. She's eating these Raisinets, and I'm sitting there going, maybe I should just have a few. I think I can do that. And it was only willpower that stopped me, because I knew in my head, I don't eat a few Raisinets. I eat a whole bag, that stand-up bag. I can eat a whole thing. And it was hard work. So the thought of getting rid of the resistance sounds very, very good. So what is the actual mind scan? I mean, for those of you who are listening later on a podcast, it's a very visual thing. I've actually done it with Jarod. It's brilliant. But can you describe it for listeners in a way that they'll actually understand what the whole thing's about?
Yeah. So the mind scan takes about 20 minutes. It's just a matter of arranging some values so that they line up with the way you see the world. With that and some pretty fancy math, which is why Robert Hartman's list of values is Nobel nominated, and his research on those values. With his algorithm, we're able to turn that list of values into a visual map where we can see strengths and weaknesses, we can see blind spots, we can connect different thinking patterns. There is no perfect thinking pattern. Each thinking pattern has its own strength and weakness. But if you've been working harder and faster for the past 3 years and you're not doubling your income every couple of years, we know that working harder isn't what's missing. It could just be how your brain is looking at the world. And by having that map in 10 seconds, we know exactly which feeling your body has been missing and which set of mindset push-ups are going to create it.
And you mentioned one mindset push-up. Is there something? Do people have to go? I mean, yours is not a physical gym, right? You call it
Not
a
a physical
gym, but are there things people can do on their own, or is it really something that's got to be led by a master like yourself?
Could you do it on your own? I mean, can you read the label from the inside of the bottle? If I gave you a bicycle and a book on how to ride a bicycle, most people would read the book and feel that they know how to ride a bicycle. And I can't fault them for that. Reading the book, it's got all the illustrations, it's got all the knowledge, you could pass a test on it. You're an expert on riding a bicycle, at least in your own head, you are. Going through the mindset push-ups with somebody guiding you is getting on the bicycle, making sure that you're feeling that in your body and you aren't just telling yourself in your head, oh yeah, I understand.
Gotcha. Okay. And what is the leadership V?
The leadership V is one thinking pattern. I mean, there's hundreds of them that shows up in the mind scan. I would contrast that with another thinking pattern called the chevron of stress. When somebody prides themselves on taking action, they pride themselves on getting done. They believe that more action gets more results. They're kind of a go driven person. Their brain tends to produce. What the heck? Another sneeze. Their brain in the mind scan produces a way of thinking, a pattern. And that the way it's mapped out, we call it a little chevron. And I kind of jokingly call it the chevron of stress. Because when a brain prioritizes action over everything else, you're good at getting things done, checking things off your to-do list. But that isn't the same thing as making a difference. It's not the same thing as causing things to be done. And so the harder and faster you check things off your to-do list, the more things show up on it the next day. Well, of course, if the brain's good at getting things done, then it just looks for things to do. So there's always more on your to-do list than you have time to get done. And working harder and faster never clears it up. Very stressful. It makes sense to take more action, but the more action you take, the less time you have to show for it. There's another thinking pattern, and we call this the leadership V whenever it shows up in the test results. If you can think of somebody that's very successful, they own 3 businesses, they make $2 million a year in personal income, but they work like 5 hours a week. It seems like they have the touch of gold. The less they work, the more they make. They go on vacation, their companies make more money without them. That's a completely different kind of thinking. Their brains tend to value how people feel emotionally and what processes are more efficient than other processes. They're valuing motions and efficiency. Their brain tends to almost be allergic to personally doing the work. So for them, while they're spending their time during the day, they're spending their time on systems that have no limit to scalability. There's no limit to the number of systems in your life that can be causing things to happen. But the person who values action, they're spending their time doing things. And if you do it, we know there wasn't a system to do it for you. And that's why they're just spinning their wheels in a dead end.
So when I first met you and you learned the term mind scan, I thought I have to go into like an MRI machine and you're going to take a picture of my brain, but it's actually an online set of questions that you answer. And then you produce this, and I wish that everybody could see this. It's very visual, kind of a chart or several charts and a report on here's where your beliefs are, here's where your values are. And then from there, you're, if I'm explaining this right, you have the education so that you now understand what your values are. And that's the 3-foot ladder you're talking about, right?
Couple distinctions, if I could add to that. One is the assessment itself doesn't use questions. It's not a questionnaire. DISC, Myers-Briggs, Strength Finder, and Enneagram assessments like that rely on you self-reporting answers to the questions. So because you're self-reporting, no matter how hard you try, your subconscious is gaming the system, which means we don't get accurate as we could answers. This would be like you going to the doctor's office and the doctor coming into your room carrying someone else's test results. That wouldn't be helpful. Okay? No. That's what those assessments tend to produce. The other thing is those assessments tend to produce a population comparison. Hey, you have these traits and 25% of the population also has these traits. And you think, Eureka, I'm not crazy. There's other people that think just like me. This is wonderful. Well, but it's not helpful. That would be like the doctor saying, hey, you have this condition and we have a 25% success rate treating it. I don't care. Which side of that line am I on? That's what I want to know. The mind scan is not a population comparison. It is only a scientific measurement of how your brain sees the world. Because of that, we know exactly where you're at. Now, with where you're at, we know exactly the fastest path to get out of the weeds. There's no perfect thinking pattern. There's no perfect mind scan. We could just simply look at how your brain sees the world and what kind of problems you keep running into. Don't have enough time, don't have enough money, can't keep employees, can't keep staff, can't find the right people, never seem to grow. We can look at those problems and see how that way of thinking is going to continually recreate them until we get new thinking patterns in your head.
So I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyways. When you see the results of someone's mind scan, are there certain results that certain results where they tend to make people more successful, or can anybody be successful as long as they have that map?
Yeah, there is a minimum height. You do sort of have to be this tall to ride the roller coaster. You do. There are some brains where the level of awareness is not enough to make a difference. I would say, though, that whenever I encounter those thinking patterns, it's always paired with life circumstances or work circumstances that also make it nearly impossible. Just the nature of their job. People that have like enough awareness, enough momentum, they tend to be in jobs that also give them enough access and flexibility to start to make a difference. They just sort of work together. I've looked at mind scans and just stopped and said, I think you recently had a death in the family or a bankruptcy or a divorce. This might not be a good time for us to, go through your thinking patterns. And they're like, yeah, actually I did. 2 weeks ago, this is what happened. I was like, man, I'm really sorry you're going through that. But let's revisit this in a few months.
Wow. Do you have a favorite story of one of your clients, or is that the one you just told us about, this woman in the gym?
I do like her story because by most measures, she's very successful. And what she valued was, personal. I've got golly favorite story. I don't know if I favorite, but had a guy who is coaching executives. He's running this executive coaching business. He's networking with these Fortune 50 CEOs. He's just curious. He comes to the Mindset Gym. He values his own personal growth and development. Hey, let me do this. So he runs the course of exercises. It takes about 3 months to master all those. And in the process of it, it sort of floats to the surface. There is this thing in his life that hasn't really worked. And he's tried everything and done everything, and it's not working. He didn't know what to do. And that was his relationship with his adult son. So his adult son had some mental challenges, like he was on a spectrum. He wasn't functioning as wholly as a person could be. He's still living at home. And the byproduct of all of that is they haven't had a relationship in like a decade. And he goes through some of the exercises. He feels a new sensation in his body, changes the way his brain solves some of those problems. And I remember the next week, I hop on, hey, let me hear any wins or challenges from your week. And he goes, my son came to me yesterday, said, hey, Dad, can I have a hug? For him, he got his relationship with his son back. That's what he got out of it. I had a lady who was very happy being a mom and raising her kids. But then her kids grow up and leave the house, and she's like, I don't know what to do now. I've just been a mom. I don't know what to do now. And she's lost and feels like she's spinning her wheels. Come to the Mindset Gym, because that's two of the biggest things that you get out of those exercises: confidence and clarity. It's like standing on a ladder in a corn maze. You know exactly. So we go through the exercises. Lo and behold, her zone of genius, her skill set happened to be worth $10,000 an hour. She had
$10,000 an hour?
$10,000 an hour. Now, I know that is an unbelievable claim, because the only people that make 10 grand an hour are grifting politicians or televangelists. I know that seems insane, and she was neither one of those. She had an ability to look at demographic data and find threads that connected it that other people just couldn't see. So she would spend her time poring over reports, demographic reports of cities. And as a result of doing that, it would help her to see real estate investment opportunities that local investors in that town couldn't see. So she would, do one of these deals, buy one of these buildings. She'd make $400,000 in profit. It took her about 40 hours to analyze the data to find it. That's $10,000 an hour. And her ability to do this is so robust, so predictable, that her husband quit his job to go to work for her new company. For her, though, the real excitement was, now that she's growing a company, she gets to grow as a leader, delegating, documenting, demonstrating, having assistants, getting them trained up. And so her self-expression as a leader was like the biggest thing that she got out of it. She absolutely loved growing that way.
Brilliant. I could talk about this stuff all day, and we're starting to run out of time, but there are a couple of other things I want to mention before we go that I saw. First of all, one was you claim to either be or have been a world tickle champion. What's that all about?
Sorry. I totally forgot about that. Yes, world tickle champion in the 5-year-old category. I had a kid. He was 5 years old, and it's like my identity shift, and I didn't see it coming. And being a dad was just like the most enjoyable, fulfilling thing I could have imagined. I never saw it coming. I didn't expect it out of my life. And so, that's how I saw myself. And for a while, that was even on my website. But I started to get complaints because people would read it and they're like, "That's weird. That's weird, creep." And I just encountered enough people that didn't understand and couldn't relate that I eventually took it down. So right now, he's obviously older. He's 14 right now, and I'm a baseball dad. I spend about 20 hours a week on the field practicing with my son, throwing batting practice, hitting fly balls. Big part of my life. I love it.
Nice. I think I saw that on your LinkedIn profile, by the way. And by the way, I can completely relate. I had no intention of ever becoming a parent, not in my future. Got married. She said, I want to have kids. I'm like, all right, it'll be somebody to watch cartoons with. I have to agree. It is truly the most fulfilling thing. Biggest pain in the rear end and incredibly expensive, but it's just amazing. There's one other thing I wanted to ask you about because I saw it on your list. Skydiving. I was actually supposed to go skydiving today and just got an email saying from the place saying it's too windy. But you've been skydiving. Do you do that actively? What does that do for you? I can certainly tell you what it did for me when I did it once before. But tell me a little bit about that.
Before I had kids, skydiving was a big part of my life. Loved going. I ended up with about 350 jumps. I haven't jumped in years, just because if I have spare time, I'm with my son on the baseball field. That's the reason I haven't jumped in a while. I was a part of the 1994 New Mexico State skydiving record. I jumped all over the United States. Great memories there. What was it like for me at the time that I was skydiving a lot? It felt like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing with my life. It felt like I'm exactly where I should be, doing exactly what I should be doing. This is the highest and best use of my life. The feeling itself, it's hard to imagine if nobody's been skydiving before. But the feeling is not chaotic. It's not like the biggest roller coaster you've ever ridden. It's more like peacefully floating in a swimming pool. It's quiet and calm and serene. There's no like violent, stomach churning like you get on a roller. That doesn't happen skydiving, and so it just sublime. It feels wonderful.
I did it once a billion years ago, and it's exactly what you said. Just this amazing thing. And back I did it back in the days when I was clubbing and dancing and stuff like that. And there were many times when I'd be in a club and I'd look across the dance floor and go, "Oh, she's too good looking. I can't ask her to dance." And then my mind would go, "Wait a minute. You've jumped out of an airplane from 12,500 feet. I'm pretty sure you can ask a girl to dance." And interestingly, the reason I was going to go today was because my son graduated college a couple of months ago, just got a job. Very exciting, great gig, by the way, big pay and all that stuff. His education is going to pay off. He wrote to me the other day and said, "Hey, some friends said I should do something great, something crazy before I start my job. What do you think I should do?" And I gave him kind of a couple of obscene suggestions. And he said, "What do you think of skydiving?" I said, "Dude, I'm in. Let's do it."
Let's do it.
Yeah. So hopefully we can go tomorrow. At any rate, we actually are out of time. But before we go, I'd like to share my screen. Jarod, would you tell people how they can reach you if they're interested in doing the mind scan or working with you at the Mindset Gym?
You can certainly stop by mindsetperformance.co, not com, but .co. You can take the mind scan for yourself. You get a 21-page report. Pretty interesting if you want to connect the dots and some of the thinking patterns, because the report doesn't go over any of the thinking patterns, and that's where your real breakthroughs are. Happy to hop on a call with you. Shoot me an email. We'll schedule a time, and we'll just look through the reports together, see if we can untangle some of those thinking patterns.
Got it. And the people who are watching us live can see the phone number and the email address. For those who will be listening in a couple of weeks on a podcast, would you like to give out that information for them?
Sure. So the website is mindsetperformance.co. If you want to shoot me an email, it's results@mindsetperformance.co.
And again, that's CO, not COM, not .com,
Yes.
it's .co.
Correct.
Jarod, thank you so much for sharing your brilliance so generously. I know when I first met you, I was blown away. You did great when you were my guest coach at the Sales Pro Insider Network. And thank you again for today. I really appreciate it. And I'll end as I always do, gang. Please remember that sales is a game of making things happen. So get out there and make sales happen. Have a great day, everybody, and a great weekend. Thanks again, Jarod.
Thank you, sir.